Thought I would start the day by refitting the tail lights. I have tried my best to get the lenses off and resilver them inside, but I just can't do it without breaking them. So these are the best ones I've got, and I've salvaged a bolt out of one of the scrap lenses. Now I've got to feed that through and back into the inside, for which I'm using MIG wire and insulation tape. I've already done one, that's worked out okay, so I'm just basically posting the MIG wire through, up through one of the bulb holders, and tape the bolt to the end and then pull it back through. Bit of a fiddle, but necessary. Super, so that's one done. And now I'm going to gob it on the car with the butyl sealer. More beauty rub all around the circumference, and then on the car I've gone around the bolt holes themselves. Now the fun of squidging it on there and doing it up. So there's light number one. This is light number two. Again, thin bead around the bottom, bit thicker on the top. That's the original foam seal. Because it isn't torn, it's okay to use it, and I'm just sealing onto the bodywork so that basically water can't get in. The same has been done with the badges and bumper mounts and everything, so fingers crossed it stays waterproof. Much better. It's not as good as having a brand new pair, but each cluster is now 130 quid new, so unless they come up cheap second hand, they're, you know, it's just a result to find the ones that don't have cracked or crazed lenses. They're the best I actually have. I think they're actually off the diesel, so by the time I finish the diesel I'll hope to have picked up some more from somewhere. And before anyone else asks, I did try and split the lenses off the backings, and you can do the hot water trick where you pour boiling water on and it should break the bond, but it doesn't, or it didn't on these ones anyway. So yeah, they're as they are for the moment, and when the car's all together hopefully it'll look quite nice. Okay, we now find ourselves up at the front of the car, where we have the previous owner's ingenious attempt at an additional cooling link. So it comes out of what I think is the V8 drain block plug thing, across here, through the wing to the underside where there must have been some sort of cooler. Then it does a loop across the front of the car in that pipe, then goes back into the engine on that side. So kind of not needed now, so that's all got to come out. Annoyingly, I cannot get to the back side of that and the fitting, and this side is just rounding, so I'm going to have to cut it off. But being copper, it shouldn't spark on anything, so the paint should be reasonably well protected, but I will still get a little cloth and just put it around there to prevent too much crap going everywhere. Got the majority of the additional cooling loop out. Some of it's down there, and then what I've done is just started masking up on the top so that when I brush paint my Jotun 87 I don't accidentally get that. So I'm just going to paint the whole of the underside here, and I'll not do that bit because that's a nice colour green and it is overcoated. I think the body shop did paint it with something. It might be Hydrate 80 because that dries clear, but it's basically left a really nice keyed surface, and I've been testing where I previously painted it with Jotun and it's not coming off at all, even with a screwdriver. So I'm just going to do the whole of the underside now, the rad support brackets. And again, this is why this car was weird and worth saving. It's because none of this, all of this is perfectly solid metal. No hint of rust in it whatsoever. So I'm going to go get my Jotun 87, mix it up, wait 10 minutes and then paint it on there. I'm also going to do inside here and on this side of the car where it had new metal put in. Jotun 87 is all mixed up. Had a bit of an expensive fail because as I was mixing it I poured it, well, I knocked it over and poured it all over my toolbox, which is a pain in the butt. But anyway, you know the process. Mixed up, wait for 10 minutes in the pot, paint it on, job's a good one. So I'm going to do that now. It's getting dark but that is all done now. I didn't really know where to transition from the rad mounts to the body, but kind of smeared it there, and then when I get the green paint out I can touch some of that in with a brush. All of the underside is done up to the lip here, so it shouldn't rust. All the front side's done, and the leading ends of the chassis rails just dusted over. So I'm going to call it a day. Well, I say day, it's only about 6 o'clock, but the clocks go back soon, so I need to make as much use of daylight as I can, which is super annoying. Fuel tank time. This tank did have some rust and corrosion in it, but I've left it soaking in deoxy, and now when you look inside, well, that's not a very good torch, you can see it's basically eating off all of the rust that was in there, just left a few deposits, and then that's been flushed with water, then with petrol, and it's just evaporating off. But the next thing to do is to refit or fit a brand new fuel pump and lift sock. I've got the sender unit and the cradle. That's a new gasket to go on the top, and I've bought a whole load of new bolts. Incidentally, I think these were M4 originally. I've had to go back through them and tap them out M5 because the threads were a bit grotty. It's supposed to be dry today, and it's spitting with rain, like this annoying misty rain that gets you wet without actually being proper rain. That's the crap that came out of the tank. There was some crap in the bucket already, so don't be too alarmed, and that deoxy kind of goes that colour when it's reacting with rust. But yeah, just sorting out fixings, nuts and bolts now, or the washers really. I've got everything else. Okay, with this tank they have a cork seal, and I think originally they would have had O-rings under the heads of the bolts. Basically, in my experience, that doesn't work, so I'm putting a little dribble of black silicone on the underside of the gasket, the top side of the gasket, and around the bolt heads, then that should keep it nice and sealed. Ooh, right, the sender is in. I've checked that the pump works with the jumper pack. I've checked that the fuel sender works. I don't actually know what the ohm readings should be for full and empty, but basically when you move it, it does stuff. So now the tank goes in the car. Fuel tank is in, all stone chipped to make it look like the original, or the rest of the car anyway. Cool. Bit of a recap. Obviously the front of Dotty looks a bit different. I cannot for the life of me work out this weather, and that has meant that things have been done in a peculiar order and in a frantic rush. So yesterday my mate came round and we fitted the fuel tank. That is up and in, really happy with that. The fuel pump works, the fuel sender appears to work. We were going to set about waterproofing the rest of it because it leaks where this old tailgate just does not seal. It's pouring in through there, so I'm investigating solutions, and I'm contacting a guy somewhere who thinks he might have a new tailgate seal. If he does, that would be a miracle, but that's what the car needs. Because of the inclement weather, there wasn't a lot of point doing really nice things or painting, so we set about rebuilding a front bumper and fitting that. I've been through my collection of bits and pieces and picked out the best front plinth that I had and two of the very best end caps that I had. These are extremely hard to find that aren't already destroyed, and that is a really nice one. It has a tiny gouge there and a little impression, but what happens is the metal inside here rusts and then blisters up, and this all gets distorted, so that's a good one. Then on this side, another really nice one. Again, slight kiss mark here, but nothing bad. And the centre, it might look a bit grotty in the rain and with sticker marks on it, but that is a brand new old stock stainless steel centre, so that when the rain's off it, all polished up, will look amazing. Dug out the headlights, they're good to go, but there's a few more things in and around the front to do before they can go in. I don't want to reroute the wiring because the wiring actually goes through some of these plug holes in here. Today was supposed to be pissing down, and I think it will probably rain again. It's meant to rain in about an hour's time, so I'm going to get on, and if the underside of this is as dry as I think it is, I'm going to mix up some more of that U-Pole Raptor and paint the inner wheel wells, paint over all the Jotun under the front and do the other side. And for that I'm going to need to go and get some axle stands so I can get the wheels off. In record breaking time, the car is in the air. Again, I just want to remind people that although this looked, and it was rusty, it wasn't rusty in difficult to fix places. And this is a problem area for SD1s. It's the strut tops and the turrets. Basically water gets in that seam, rusts it out, and in that seam blows it apart and it rots out. And yeah, it's Mr. MOT man's favourite thing to fail the one. This is really solid, and basically all I'm going to do is get my panel wipe and a Scotch-Brite, clean up all of this, paint it with the U-Pole Raptor. But these calipers, they're not standard, they're not original. I don't know what they're off, because they're 4 pots with a vented disc, and the only SD1s to have that were the Vitesses and the Van der Plas EFIs, and dimensionally that's what they are, but they're single feed. So on the Vitesses and the Van der Plas EFIs, which were much later cars, you had 2 brake lines coming through and it was twin circuit. So these are either off a police car, which, you know, the Met Police very early on had this type of caliper, or they might be off a Princess or something that I don't know about. But it's all done with braided lines rather than rubber, so that can stay. Everything's in really good nick. The disc doesn't actually have any wear lipping, it spins freely. So my plan is to clean it all up, put some new pads in, and then test drive it and see what it does. The other modification which has been made, which has worked out quite handy, is this massive anti-roll bar bracket. So the anti-roll bar is standard thickness, but that is not original. My understanding is that back in the 80s, people were spacing out the anti-roll bar from the subframe because it gave the car additional stability under heavy braking. I'm not sure why, but I think it's because the anti-roll bar is also what locates the track control arm. That has been polybushed as well. So yeah, something was done to this car to make it rather nice. Oh, and the aftermarket oil cooler running off the sandwich plate up there, which is obviously not original. Less chatting again. I'm going to go mix up the U-Pole Raptor. I've still got 3 bottles left from my initial, I think it was 70 quid. So hopefully this bottle will do all of the underside at the front and the wheel wells. And then I'll have 2 bottles spare. One to do the rear wheel wells and the boot floor, and then one in my arsenal of bits and pieces that can just stay in stock. So I'll mix that up, get something to lie on, and then find some gloves. So this is the stuff. That's the Raptor Hardener, that's the liner, which is basically your material. You pour that in the measuring cup, which has the line on exactly where you need it, 237 millilitres, and then that goes mostly in there, mostly on the floor, because it's a stupid bloody nozzle thing. But cock. You'll notice I'm probably not a very good cook with my care with measurements, but it'll go off eventually, even if it's a bit short on hardener. So that goes back in there, and then this gets shaken up a lot because it's quite thick. And then I'll do what I did with the Jotun, which is just leave it to go off for a bit in there before decanting into that and painting all over the underside of the car. So while that's being, I don't know, doing its stuff and the catalyst beginning to go off, I'll go and Scotch-Brite the underside of the car. We are good to go. Got a bit of a sheet down just to stop the mess. That's all rubbed down. I've given the Jotun a particularly good going over because it likes a good mechanical key. The weather is starting to cloud over again, so I'm not going to bother filming much of this. I'm just going to get on and do it. We are done. It is just about to piss down. In fact, I've already felt a few drops of rain. Yeah, it's just started raining. So that's all done in here, all the way around. I did up to the tops of the radiator mounts on this side. All done in and around here. And I actually had enough left in my bottle to do all of the underside of the boot floor all the way across, and just to use up the dregs I started tossing it in the wheel wells, not very neatly, and the wheels need to come off to do it nicely. But yeah, can you hear the pitter patter of rain? So that's actually really good timing, so I'm going to call it a day. Oh no, a woodpecker. Cool, see you later. Talk about good timing. It's absolutely hammering it down. You might have noticed on the floor I had that's the headlight washer bottle, and these are the other bumpers that I had and I took apart to make the good one. Dotty came with a Van Plast spec front bumper which had the overriders with headlamp, squirty wash. Unfortunately, all cars that had overriders were Van Plast, and they had this cutout here for the trim. So putting these back on the brand new bumper would have looked a bit gammy because you just see this massive hole. I didn't have a good Van Plast front and rear bumper, so basically it's gone back to standard with the clean looking chrome bumpers, and I think that actually looks better on the car anyway. So it's just a cleaner, simpler, nicer, purer look. And Dotty's going to have the little skeletal badge on the front, not the big I don't know if I've got one. Yeah, not like that badge up there. It's going to look a little neater, so that's what's going to happen.